afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started. If folks would mind, there's taking seats if you feel more comfortable seated. There's room in the back. Thank you all for being here. Good afternoon and welcome. And thank you for joining this event to highlight lead poisoning prevention in Rhode Island. My name is Katie West, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Housing Network of Rhode Island. We're the state's association of nonprofit community development organizations. And we're also the backbone organization for Homes RI, which is a multi-sector coalition of organizations working to increase the supply of safe, healthy, and affordable homes. And a key pillar of our housing opportunities framework is promoting healthy homes, and that's one of the most significant issues relating to healthy homes in Rhode Island is lead. And by now, many of you may have heard repeatedly how our housing stock is one of the oldest in the country. Nearly 3/4 of it was built before 1980, which also tells you something about our supply. Our old housing stock is a primary driver of health risks, including lead poisoning. And we know that that has absolutely devastating consequences for young children, their families, and consequential impacts on our social institutions. It's also a serious equity issue. Low-income children are most at risk for having elevated blood lead levels. And that's a vestige of redlining and residential segregation and blocked access to economic opportunities. We can do better in Rhode Island to prevent lead poisoning, and the policies being uplifted today by legislative champions and advocates do that. On behalf of Homes RI, I want to acknowledge and thank Attorney General Neronha and his team for their strong, unequivocal leadership on this issue. Senate President Ruggerio, who has made water supply replacement a top priority. Legislative champions, Deputy Whip Ackerman, Chairwoman Oyer, Senator Acosta, Senator Lawson, Senator Mack, Representative Dawson, Representative Morales, Representative O'Brien, and Representative Boas. They've each worked hard to put forth legislation aimed at strengthening enforcement of lead protections and bringing us closer to lead-safe housing for all. I would also like to acknowledge Speaker Shekarchi for his leadership on housing more broadly and the entire General Assembly for the investments that you made last year in housing. And I did see Representative Cruz and Representative McGaugh stop by earlier, so just want to thank them. And if I'm missing anybody, I apologize, but maybe your colleagues will see you and shout you out. And it's now my privilege to welcome our slate of speakers. First up is House Deputy Whip Mia Ackerman, and she'll be followed by Chairwoman Dawn Oyer, some tenant speakers from Childhood Lead Action and Reclaim Rhode Island, who are two mothers, tenants who have come to share their personal stories and testimony about how their lives were impacted by poor housing quality conditions and the existence of lead paint. So I just want to thank everybody, thank all our speakers, and thank you all for being here, for your advocacy and your leadership. Thank you. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Deputy Whip Ackerman.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you all here today. Is this working? Yeah. I want to thank the Attorney General's office and Senate President Ruggerio, Senator Oyer, Homes Rhode Island, and Childhood Lead Action Project for advocating on this incredibly important issue. I'm here on behalf of myself and also the House of Representatives, as Speaker Shekarchi couldn't make it here today. So I spend a lot of time working with young people in Cumberland, and I have volunteered in Cumberland Public Schools for over 20 years. So when I heard that 1 in 20 children in Cumberland will have lead poisoning by the time they're in first grade, that hit me hard. I know a lot of these kids, and it's very personal for me. My kids are grown now, but when they were growing up, their friends were in and out of my house very often. To think that 1 in 20 of them faced lead poisoning is heartbreaking. And in the other community that I represent, Lincoln, it's 1 in 14. None of our children should be in this situation. This is a preventable disease. It is a solvable problem. My family's lucky. We owned our home when my kids were growing up, and if we had a problem with lead, we could take action. And for families with their own home, and for families who own their home but are lower income, there are state programs to help remediate lead so their kids would be safe as well. But families who rent don't have this luxury. There's a shortage of rental units. A family can't ask for a certificate of compliance with lead laws or a lead test before signing a lease. They could perhaps get passed over by a landlord to another family. I can't imagine the stress of having to choose between moving into an apartment that might have lead that would poison your children, or looking and praying you find another place for your family to live in. This is why this is important to me. The bill I'm sponsoring would require all landlords to demonstrate that their homes were built after 1978, the year lead paint was banned, or if the home was built before 1978, that they are in compliance with lead safety laws. And my bill is just part of what we're working on. Representative O'Brien is sponsoring a bill to replace all lead pipes at no cost to the property owner. And Representatives Morales and Dawson are sponsoring bills to strengthen rights for tenants. I know that the vast majority of landlords are responsible people who wouldn't risk exposing children to lead. Most landlords are already in compliance with lead laws, and it won't be difficult for them to register. But there are a few, unfortunately, who, whether through ignorance or callousness, rent homes to families that are making children sick. We can't stand by and let this happen. Too many of our children are getting sick from this preventable disease. Passing my bill, as well as all the others, is the right thing to do for our children and our state. Again, thank you so much for having me here today. And I'd like to give a shout out to my colleagues who are here. Representative Morales, I saw, and Representative Vos, who also has a lead bill that we will be hearing about. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Representative Ackerman, for those remarks. And now I'm happy to introduce Senate Judiciary Chair Dawn Oyer.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Mia, for I always love working with Deputy Majority Whip Ackerman on legislation, so it's always a pleasure to see her. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Attorney General Neronha and his entire staff. They have been on this issue. I've talked to them about this issue prior to this year and the package being introduced. And they really are, with them in the Department of Health, are really on the front lines and can see firsthand where we have a gap in legal enforcement, where we have a gap in our existing laws. And to think about the fact that 1978 is when we stopped having lead paint. It's 2023. Why is this still an issue? And I think that reality and the Attorney General and his team coming forward, recognizing that, half a century later that we still have this problem, we really need to be proactive and come together with a package of legislation to make sure that we are being proactive in the issues of addressing childhood lead poisoning instead of reactive. I give huge credit to the Attorney General and his team, because it's not often that you have folks who are thinking in that proactive way about a suite of bills to come forward and help close that gap. So a big thank you to the Attorney General and Neronha and his entire team. Thank you also to Homes RI, Katie, thank you so much. Also to the Childhood Lead Action Project, you have been there on this issue in so many ways. kind of forever. Unfortunately, that we need you to be there forever, but huge shout out to all of the work that you do. I see Weona from the Economic Progress Institute, so thank you for being here and the work that EPI does on this and so many other issues. I know there's a strong partner group of coalition partners working on this effort, so I don't want to leave anyone out, but I think that, with coalitions and with strong partnerships is how we get big things done. And this is so critical to human health and to our children, and I couldn't be more proud of all of the folks that are around the table working hard on this issue. I also do want to acknowledge and recognize and thank President Ruggerio and Representative Morales and Representative O'Brien for all of the steadfast work they've been doing on the lead pipes issue and trying to make sure that we have legislation in place and are doing everything possible to capture opportunity and funding from the federal level, from the federal funding, while also making sure that we have an aggressive plan to replace lead pipes. And I also wanted to thank and recognize Senator Mack and Senator Lawson, who are co-sponsors on other pieces of the Attorney General's package. I also want to thank Senator Acosta, who kind of on his own sees a piece of a problem in the existing law that exempts homeowner occupied properties, which is an issue we've dealt with in the discrimination space, but I think also needs to be addressed in this lead poisoning case, because we shouldn't be exempting owner-occupied properties from this as well, because that leaves a whole gaping exemption that you can drive a truck through. So thank you to Senator Acosta for that. Thank you to Senator Quesada for being here, and also to Senator Cano, who stopped by earlier, and is also, the two of them have been great in working on this issue as well in the Senate. Really, I'm from Newport. I live in Newport. It's a beautiful city with historic homes. When folks think of Newport, they think of the mansions, they think of Ocean Drive. But really, Newport is the tale of two cities. We have one of the largest blocks of affordable housing. We have intense poverty in the city of Newport. And that comes, the challenges around lead and lead remediation are just compounded when you have such a heavy stock of historic homes. So, I know that Newport is surprisingly and unfortunately high on the list when it comes to childhood lead poisoning. So for me, this is important in my district. This is important to our children across the state. We really do need to take a preventative approach. And in reality, this is going to save money. A lot of times we talk about bills like this and we think about, how much is the cost? That's often a pushback on things like this. Well, where's the parallel conversation about the human health cost, the impacts to people's lives, and the cost that we're going to spend over the lifetime of the child in trying to mitigate for the impacts to their lives because of the lead poisoning? So if you're concerned about the cost and the morals of wanting to do this because it's the right thing and you're concerned about cost, let's not let those public health dollars be an externalized cost as part of this conversation. So this is going to save money, it's going to create jobs, it's going to give children the opportunity to lead healthy and full lives. It's critically important that we get this done. Half a century after we banned lead paint, absolutely unacceptable that we're still having this conversation in the state of Rhode Island. I look forward to working with you and the Attorney General's office and all of the advocates. Let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Oyer, for your passion and strong commitment to this issue. I want to just also recognize and see Senator Gifusa and Representative Solomon, and I believe Representative Sanchez was here as well, so thank you all for stopping by. Next up, I'm very, very pleased to be able to introduce the Deputy Attorney General, Adi Goldstein, and just really acknowledge the work that the Attorney General's office has been doing on this issue. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you all here today. It's my honor to be here on behalf of Attorney General Peter Neronha. He wishes he could be here in person to support this incredibly powerful and important slate of legislation. But as you all know, he is still recovering from surgery. Before I get going, first of all, thank you so much for all the kind words that Senator Oyer had to say about the Attorney General's team. And often it is the Attorney General, Peter Neronha, who is up here, and sometimes it is I. But I do feel like it is important today to acknowledge the work of the amazing team at the Attorney General's office that they have done on these bills. So Keith Hoffman, our civil rights advocate, please stand up. And I'm going to ask our wonderful slate of young attorneys and interns and fellows, if you can please stand up. Acknowledge the work that these incredible public servants do day in and day out on important initiatives like this initiative, fighting for the rights of Rhode Islanders of all walks of life to live in safe homes, to live in safe neighborhoods, and lead productive lives. And that's what this slate of bills is supposed to do. Thanks again, Keith. So we all know that lead exposure, even at low levels, is highly damaging to our children. It increases a child's risk of developing permanent learning disabilities. It reduces concentration and effectiveness. It slows growth, and it increases the risk of behavioral problems and involvement in the criminal justice system. Rhode Island's existing lead laws, as Senator Oyer and Deputy Whip Ackerman have mentioned, they are strong, and if they are followed, they would be great and enough to mitigate this public health crisis. The problem is not the laws. The problem is compliance with the laws. And what this slate of bills does is it gives our existing laws some teeth. It is going to ensure that people comply with the laws. These bills are important to ensure that landlords remediate lead risks in their homes. The result of non-compliance after more than half a century that lead paint has been banned and our increasing and aging housing stock is that Rhode Island has the second highest rate of children under the age of 6 with severe lead poisoning in Rhode Island. 1 out of 14 rising kindergarten students are impacted by lead poisoning. And in 221, over 400 children were newly lead poisoned in our state. Think about this for 1 minute. That's more than 1 child a day in a year that have been lead poisoned. This is entirely preventable if we give our laws some teeth. And that's what these bills are intended to do. These bills have been modeled after Maryland's lead poisoning laws, which are considered the gold standard in prevention of lead poisoning nationwide. Those bills have been effective in leading to a 95 to 99% reduction in lead poisoning of children since 2000. Our laws, as Senator Oyer and Deputy Whip Ackerman have explained, establish a compliance registry for landlords who are renting properties built 1978 so that we know that they are lead compliant. They allow tenants to move money and put their money in escrow until the lead issues in their homes have been remediated. They allow families affected by childhood lead poisoning to recover up to 3 times their actual damages, to incentivize landlords to comply with existing laws. These bills together will affect real change, and they will help save lives and make our children's lives better. Attorney General Neronha remains steadfastly committed to enforcing Rhode Island's current laws and has continued to take action against those who fail to comply. Since 2021, the Attorney General has filed over 19 lawsuits and obtained hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages and penalties from landlords who have failed to fully address serious lead issues in their home. As a result of these actions, more than 45 housing units have been remediated, following issuance of intent to sue letters, pre-suit negotiations, and lawsuits. We have also worked very closely with our fellow state agencies, the Rhode Island DEM and Rhode Island Department of Health, to enforce these laws and to provide guidance to landlords in how they can comply. The health consequences here are too serious The risks are too dire not to act now for our children's sake. These bills are tried and true tools to empower renters and to hold landlords accountable. With these bills and the Attorney General's commitment to prosecute negligent landlords, we will be well on our way to eradicating lead poisoning in our community. And before I conclude, I again want to take this opportunity to thank the Senate President and the Speaker for their leadership in this area, housing in general, and lead poisoning prevention. I wanted to thank Deputy Whip Mia Ackerman for sponsoring our rental registry and clean hands bill, and Chairwoman Dawn Oyer for sponsoring the Senate version of that bill. I wanted to thank Representatives David Morales and Senator Tiara Mack for sponsoring our escrow bill, and I wanted to thank Representative Matthew Dawson and Senator Val Lawson for sponsoring the treble damages bill. I also want to acknowledge and thank the leadership of Representative O'Brien and Senator Acosta, I believe, have been here as well, for their leadership on this issue. Thank you, everyone. Let's get this done.
Thank you, Deputy Attorney General Goldstein. I am now going to introduce Elizabeth, who is a parent advocate with Childhood Lead Action Project, who will be sharing her story. Thank you, Elizabeth, for making the time to be here today and your commitment.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I'm here to advocate for all the parents like me that have a child with lead poisoning. My story happened 7 years ago when my baby had 1 year old. When the Department of Health called me, it was really hard because they told me that my son is getting poisoned in the house. So for me, I wasn't aware and educated about lead poisoning because with my other children, my house was lead-free. So this house was supposed to be lead-free. So when they called me, they scared me. I was really overwhelmed. I really thought my child was gonna die. So it was really hard, but I got in contact with a lot of people, a lot of organizations that the Rhode Island Department sent me, and one of them was the Child Lead Project. So as soon as they called me, they told me, Elizabeth, we need you to talk to your landlord because this is happening, or you need to move. And my son was 1 year old and I had all the other children. I got really scared, so I said, let me talk to my landlord. So when I talked to my landlord and I told him that, he said, but I just bought the house and it was only 1 year. So we found out that the lead certificate was fake. So that's the reason why my house was lead poisoning. So because my landlord wasn't his fault, it was the previous landlord. He accepted to have my house remodeled, so thank God I had a lot of organization. They helped me within the time frame, less than a year, it was like 6 months. It was really overwhelmed, but my house right now is lead free. Thank God, it's rented, but it's lead free. My son, the lead poisoning was in double digits. That was really bad. But now, with the education that the child lead helped me in the Rhode Island Department of Health, I educate myself how to help him with nutrition and lower his lead, because they told me that it cannot be taken out, we can lower. So I learned that, and I help him, and now my son is in really low 1 digit. So I'm really happy, but they told me that when he go to school, we will show. And now he's 7. I'm doing everything. I haven't give up. I'm getting him better. So he has different things going on, but I'm here to help him more, and I'm here to help all these other parents to have the same help I got. I found out there's a lot of parents and a lot of family in my community, so I hope they can get the same help if you guys pass this bill like I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. No one should have to feel like their child might die, and thank you for being willing to share your experience in service of helping other parents not have to go through what you've gone through. in your advocacy. I want to recognize Secretary Pryor. Thank you for stopping by, Secretary. I also saw Representative Diaz was here earlier, so I want to acknowledge her as well. I thought a lot about how I would close out today's event, and in that process, I'm not going to lie, I did some Googling about some inspirational quotes on action. Oh, I see Senator McKinney is here, my senator. Hello. Because action's what's needed at the moment. Lead poisoning is preventable. You heard every single speaker say that today. And in Rhode Island, we have the groundwork already laid, most of the tools already in the toolbox. The policy is really our additive to sharpen our existing set of tools and build on the work that the legislature has done in previous years to reduce lead poisoning in our state, that the Attorney General's office has done. Most importantly, we have advocates. We have really strong legislative champions. We have strong people in state offices. We have Childhood Lead Action Project and so many other advocates who have been fighting for this for a long time. The Senate President and the House Speaker who have prioritized this issue and housing. And as for the quotes about action, most of them relate to how action has meaning beyond words. You have to think about words, of course, but action's what generates change. And most of us are here today because I believe we're committed to change for the better. So let us end with a call to action to acknowledge what needs to change to make Rhode Islanders, especially our youngest Rhode Islanders, healthier, safer, and free from the dangers of lead poisoning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again to our speakers, our legislative champions, and all of the advocates in the room.